see, everybody, I am not like the other commentary channels, okay? Instead of using crazy or insane in the title, I use bizarre. I'll go ahead and take my Nobel Peace Prize now. You know, it's funny because if this video bombs because of the title, I can't change it. that's the worst part about it. It's been an exhausting amount of trans drama recently. Like, you have the situation with Sneeko and Moist Critical where they had the worst debate on planet Earth. You have the whole thing with Ava Chris Tyson, which honestly is such a rabbit hole of knowledge, and so many people have talked about it that I don't even want to talk about it, but just know that she is a degenerate freak of nature. I do not like Ava Chris Tyson whatsoever. Get her out of here. Then you have stuff like the Iman Khalif stuff, which I have actually talked about. Don't know if the video's out yet, but I've talked about it. Now we have the situation very recently that has been going on with Elon Musk and his daughter, quote unquote. I had originally found this while browsing on my favorite app in planet Earth, Twitter, and this was a topic that I found rather interesting. That would involve a pretty popular lad by the name of Elon Musk and the situation going on with his daughter, who is trans, and not only their relationship being openly discussed, but Elon allegedly keeping someone from seeing their own children. Got pretty dark pretty quickly. So just to give some background context about the guy, for maybe those that don't really know much about him, which is like maybe like 3 people in Africa, Elon Musk, the absolute pinnacle of man himself, is quite literally one of the richest people in the world, with him literally being the richest person in Texas, apparently, at least according to this Forbes article that I looked up while researching. So here you have the richest billionaire in every state 2024, and if we look at the map here, you can see Texas, and that is in fact Elon Musk, with his estimated worth being $195. Wow. Texas. So Elon Reeve Musk is a businessman and investor known for his key roles in space company SpaceX and automotive company Tesla Incorporated. He is one of the wealthiest people in the world. As of August 2024, Forbes estimates his net worth to be $241 billion. And just so you guys get more of a sense of his accomplishments that he's made throughout his life, Elon Musk co-founded 6 companies, including electric car maker Tesla, rocket producer SpaceX, and tunneling startup Boring Company. Interesting name. What the hell? He owns about 12% of Tesla, excluding options, but has pledged more than half his shares as collateral for personal loans up to $3.5 billion. In early 2024, a Delaware judge voided Musk's 2018 deal to receive options, equaling an additional 9% of Tesla. SpaceX, founded in 2002, is nearly worth $180 billion after December 2023 tender offer up to $750 million. SpaceX stock has quintupled its value in 4 years. Musk bought Twitter in 2022 for $44 billion after later trying to back out of the deal. He owns an estimated 74% of the company, now called X. Forbes estimates that Musk's stake in X is now worth nearly 70% less than he paid for it, based on Investor Fidelity's valuation of the company as of December 2023. To say that he's not a successful businessman would be a lie, right? And honestly, his reputation kind of before he bought Twitter, which we'll get into, was actually really, really good. Like, a lot of people liked Elon Musk. There was like a moment where he was like smoking with Joe Rogan when he was smoking weed on his podcast.
So is that a joint? Or is it a cigar?
No.
Okay.
It's marijuana
It's
inside
weed.
of tobacco.
Oh, okay. So it's like posh tobacco
Yeah.
posh.
You never had that?
Yeah, I think I tried one once.
Come on, man. You want some of that? You probably can't because of stockholders, right?
I mean, it's legal, right?
It's totally legal.
Okay.
How does that work? Do people get upset at you if you do certain things? There's tobacco and marijuana in there. That's all it is. The combination of tobacco and marijuana is wonderful.
Yeah, this nigga's such a weed head. Oh my god. While owning major part of companies like the Tesla and SpaceX brand, us fellow gamers and no-lifers and people who should probably go outside and touch grassers probably know him as the tyrant. My fault. I mean, owner of X, formerly known as Twitter. As stated before, he bought Twitter a couple years ago for a total of $44 billion, which is funny because it was actually over its original stock value, with it starting out as a joke. This was a joke all the way back in 2017 when he said that he loves Twitter, and then someone responded saying, "You should buy it then." And then he was like, "Hell, yo, how much? How much we talking?" But then he actually ended up putting a legally binding offer to buy the platform off. And then Twitter sued him after he was actually trying to back out out. Like, it's this whole arc. It's crazy. This article actually does a really good job at covering the whole thing, honestly. Musk stated that he wanted to buy Twitter because he saw it as a public good that was then being mishandled through heavy-handed moderation tactics that he claimed were censoring right-wing political views. But cracks in the agreement started appearing May 13th, when Musk tweeted that the deal was on hold because he felt Twitter did not prove its claim that bot and spam accounts make up less than 5% of the accounts on the platform. Musk used the same reasoning on July 8th when he informed Twitter he was terminating the deal. The company swiftly filed a lawsuit against the billionaire in Delaware Chancery Court in response, arguing Musk had engaged in a fishing expedition to find problems with Twitter's estimate of the number of fake accounts by making increasingly invasive and unreasonable requests. Twitter is asking the court to force Musk to complete the transaction. And you could really tell that he didn't originally want to actually own Twitter. He was like super depressed about it. And through him buying it, it caused a bunch of drama with the staff here. I don't know if you guys remember the video where he's like walking into the Twitter HQ with like a sink or something. It was very, very strange. I'm not gonna hold you.
Do you have any regrets about buying Twitter?
I think it was something that needed to be done. It's been quite difficult, you know. I'd say that the pain level of Twitter has been extremely high. It hasn't been some sort of party. So it's been really quite a stressful situation. So it's been quite painful, but I think at the end of the day, it should have been done. I think were there many mistakes made along the way? Of course, you know. But you know, all's well that ends well.
All well that ends well, my fucking ass. You can clearly tell he didn't want to buy it. However, he's had a recent change in heart over the last couple years, and nowadays his reasoning for being the owner of Twitter is for a multitude of different reasons, but one in particular was the purpose of free speech.
Free speech is the mechanism by which we keep our society functioning. Woo! It's as a consequence of free speech and the ability to speak that people can put their finger on problems, articulate what those problems are, solve them, and come.
So right here you can see he says, free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy, and Twitter is a digital town square where matters vital to the future of humanity are debated, said Mr. Musk. I also want to make Twitter better than ever by enhancing the product with new features, making the algorithms open source to increase trust, defeating the spam bots, and authenticating all humans. Twitter has a tremendous potential. I look forward to working with the company and the community of users to unlock it. By the way, I have no problem with what he said here. I think free speech is very, very important, and I think just because someone has an opinion you don't like, that doesn't mean you should ban them outright unless they're championing for something that could be harmful to society, basically. Now, the reason I kind of explain that to you is, as you can clearly see, is what I like to call, and this is a term I use a lot when referring to, like, you know how people are like the left and the right. Are you left-leaning or right-leaning? I usually refer to it as a righty-tighty, and then we got the lefty-loosies. Elon Musk is what I like to call a righty-tighty, or that he leans on the right like Michael Jackson during a concert. And essentially, Elon was arguing for the right of people that were also considered righty-tighties to be unbanned and have the freedom to talk. People like Andrew Tate and even the Orange Man himself. By the way, just a side note, but he really likes the Orange Man, like a lot. Why are we talking about this dude and his political beliefs today, in the present moment? Well, that's a good question. And the reason why is because he's been in some serious drama recently that I wanted to bring attention to. A drama that very much involves his fundamental political beliefs. This situation starts not too long ago, specifically on July 22nd, 2024, where Elon actually did an interview with Jordan Peterson, who is, according to Wikipedia, a Canadian psychologist, author, and media commentator. From the little that I know about him, he seems to be a spokesperson for a lot of men's issues when the whole red pill movement was really popping off. That's what I know him for. I don't know much else other than that, but I do remember people were like laughing at him when he was crying for some reason. It was really, really strange.
Is that you? Are you the intellectual hero to these people?
Sure. Why not? You know, people have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. You know, what a terrible thing to do that is. I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice.
Making you emotional, talk about it.
Well, God, you know. It's very difficult to understand how demoralized people are. And certainly many young men are in that category. And you get these casual insults, these incels. What does it mean? It's like, well, these men, they don't know how to make themselves attractive to women who are very picky, and good for them. Women, like, be picky. That's That's your gift, man. Demand high standards from your men. Fair enough. But all these men who are alienated, it's like they're lonesome and they don't know what to do, and everyone piles abuse on them.
Now, from my 15 minutes of research into him, he runs a large variety of different shows, like the Jordan Peterson podcast, his biblical series where he talks about different chapters and verses in the Bible, and recently he even has an entire program launching soon where he puts out a set of video courses to quote-unquote challenge your intellect, increase your sophistication, expand your understanding. Whatever that means. Now, this isn't the first time these two had met each other. Since back in 2023, they had met for the first time when Jordan was visiting Elon's Tesla factory. And from an interview, he said that Elon was an amazing person and seemed to find him kind of fascinating to be around and talk to for the little time that they had spent together.
We spoke probably for 20 minutes in total, not purely privately because there was other people around, but that just barely gets you to know the surface of someone like Musk, because he's an amazing person and God only knows what's up with him, all things considered. We saw his new truck. He was taking people out for a ride. I didn't go out for a ride. The truck's an amazing piece of engineering. The factory is massive. What do you say about someone who built a functional electric car, then shot it into space on a rocket? He's a singular person, but I thought it went very well. It was a very interesting evening, so I was pleased to be there, and we sort of walked around each other a bit, and it was just fine.
Looking back, it almost seemed like it was written in the stars that these guys would eventually talk on a deeper, more fundamental level, and that's exactly what happened. And this brings us back to this current interview that happened this year. Now, I didn't watch the entire interview or anything, just want to give that heads up. It's over 2 hours long, and they talked about a lot of different topics, but I did watch a good portion of their conversation to kind of get the general gist of things, and it went into a lot of different directions. Like, for example, they went into Elon's AI Grok, which is that one tab on Twitter that nobody clicks. And Elon kind of compared it to already established AI like ChatGPT, went into its development and what's going on with it. Obviously, you can't have a conversation with Elon Musk without him talking about the woke mind virus and how harmful he sees it.
Because the others, from what I've seen, do not strive for truth.
What do they strive for?
They strive for, they strive to give an answer, but they are, I think, trained to be politically correct. And the woke mind virus is woven in throughout them.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen that.
And then also you can't have a conversation with Jordan Peterson without talking about religion.
So I've been thinking about that in relationship to sacred images.
Okay.
Okay, well, the sacred image of masculinity in the West is a crucifixion, but a man who's crucified. But the sacred image of a woman isn't a woman. The sacred image of a woman is a woman and an infant.
They talked about things like the population and the birth rate and how important it is. They also even go into Elon's childhood for a little bit, where he apparently was beaten almost to death.
Well, one of the things that stood out for me, too, though, from that, and I would like your comments about this, was the rough details of your childhood. A lot of physical altercations and a lot of, I don't know exactly how to
physical altercations. I mean, I was almost beaten to death within an inch of my life at one point.
Right, that counts.
Yeah.
That definitely counts as a
physical
physical
altercation. It wasn't just a few blows here and there, yeah.
Jeez, dude, that is so dark. Jeez Louise. But one of the biggest things in the interview that was taken away from a lot of people and also sparked a bit of controversy was Elon's comment towards one of his children, Vivian Jenna Wilson, who seemingly doesn't have a relationship at all with Elon in any capacity, to where she doesn't even want to carry his last name anymore. Honestly, before doing research in this video, I didn't even know Elon Musk had kids, let alone 15 of them hoes. He is a lot. So what exactly did Elon specifically say about her in this interview? Where this all stems from is him discussing about her and how their relationship is pretty non-existent, starting to talk about where it went wrong, which in his mind was when Vivian had thoughts of transitioning. Elon then said he was tricked into signing papers for Vivian to transition and gave him the ultimatum of if he didn't do it, then they would essentially delete themselves.
It happened to one of my older boys, where I was essentially tricked into signing documents for one of my older boys. This was before I had really any understanding of what was going on, and we had COVID going on, and so there was a lot of confusion. I was told, oh, he might commit suicide if...
Also, he didn't seem to realize what puberty blockers were at the time, or at least that's what he claimed.
Okay, so I see. So that's
so I was tricked into doing this, and it wasn't explained to me that puberty blockers are actually just sterilization drugs.
He also said that people that promote what he refers to as the woke mind virus, and I'm assuming that he's specifically referring to the aspect of it that involves the encouragement of transitioning, that those people should be put into prison.
I can't imagine a therapist doing anything worse than that, or sitting by idly and remaining silent while his colleagues are doing it. It's pathetic.
It's incredibly evil, and I agree with you that people that have been promoting this should go to prison.
A little harsh, but okay. He goes on to say that he lost his son and that the reason why they called it dead naming, which if you guys don't know what that is, that's basically when someone refers to a trans person's identity before they transition to the point where they change their name. He says the reason why they call it that is because the person that they once were is literally dead, and points to Vivian as the prime example, basically saying that they were killed by the woke mind virus.
And so I lost my son, essentially. So, you know, they call it dead naming for a reason.
Yeah,
All right, so the reason it's called dead naming is because your son is dead. So my son is dead. Killed by the woke mind virus.
And just as a side note, I don't really agree with this whatsoever, because I do not believe that simply changing your gender, regardless of if you agree with it or not, changes your personality to the degree that you would literally be considered dead, like he's saying. I think he's just heavily over-exaggerating here. And honestly, I think he's just flat out wrong, if I'm honest. And Elon's made this clear in other places, but this is kind of the source of why he hates the woke mind virus. And he said after that experience that Elon was vowed to destroy the woke mind virus.
yeah, and there's lots of people in that situation now.
Right.
It's not pretty. Yeah, well, that's a good reason to be the final straw. All right, so let's.
So I vowed to destroy the woke mind virus after that, and we're making some progress.
So you can say once again that this is like his source of trauma in a sense. So just to be clear, okay, these are some insane things to say about trans people, I won't lie. It seems that from Elon's perspective, the non-existent relationship that he now has with his child was caused due to woke propaganda, causing his son to no longer exist, which once again, your child still exists. It's just that they're not how you want them to be. As you guys can tell, there is a very, very complicated relationship between Vivian and Elon, and probably Elon and a lot of his children. And if you couldn't tell from Elon's statements, Vivian does not like him whatsoever, and I feel like some background context is kind of necessary as to why, especially to understand a lot of what Vivian is talking about in her statements, and then we're going to review her statements afterwards. So let's start from the beginning. So Vivian, who is currently 20 years old, was born in 2004 from Elon and his first wife, Justine Musk, 4 years after their marriage, because they got married in 2000. Now, we're going to get into it in more detail when we go over to Vivian's perspective, because she actually outlines her experience with Elon Musk and how bad of a father that she portrays him to be. But let's just say that Elon isn't winning any Best Dad awards anytime soon, okay? Just to give kind of a brief glimpse, he was seemingly very cold towards his children, at least according to Vivian. Now, Vivian, once again, will detail this on her Thread account and in multiple interviews. She goes into a lot of detail there, so we're going to get into it later. Now, Elon had also made some statements about the whole topic of pronouns back in 2020 that probably relate to Vivian, especially now that he said the reason that he feels the way he feels now about progressive ideology is because of Vivian. And this led him to say what people would presume is inflammatory comments that particularly pertain to trans people specifically, saying things like pronouns suck, which really affirmed his stance on the whole issue. In the past, Musk has been very vocal on Twitter regarding his opinions about preferred pronouns for transgender and binary people. After being criticized in December 2020 for a since deleted tweet seemingly mocking the use of preferred pronouns, the SpaceX CEO said that while he absolutely supported transgender people, he believed all of these pronouns are an aesthetic nightmare. Nearly 5 months prior, in July 2020, Musk tweeted, "Pronouns suck." In May 2022, 1 month after his daughter's court filing, Musk said that he plans to vote for Republican candidates moving forward, specifically showing support for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' parental rights and education bill, denounced as the Don't Say Gay law in March. So the Don't Say Gay laws, I read like a quick little excerpt about it that I'll probably include in this video. But basically it says kids from, I think it was kindergarten to grade 3 should not be allowed to learn about things like gender identity and stuff. And DeSantis actually deemed it inappropriate for them to learn about it. I'm not going to share my opinion because I'm uneducated and I don't know what I'm talking about, and you don't want my opinion, okay? So we're just going to swiftly move along. So once again, obviously you can tell that he feels very strong strongly on the whole topic, especially with co-signing a Don't Say Gay law. That does seem like it's relevant to him because that's obviously how he portrays the situation with Vivian and the reason why she transitioned. So once again, it's not surprising that that would kind of coincide with his beliefs now. So that makes sense. Now this is probably just a glimpse into what caused Vivian to feel very hostile towards Elon, alongside some other factors. And when Vivian ended up going through with it and ultimately getting the gender change when she was 18 years old, she also made the decision to officially change her name as soon as she turned 18 in June 2022, saying that she doesn't want to have any ties with Elon or his identity, including getting rid of his last name from her identity as well, which I can imagine is really, really heartbreaking for Elon. To have your child to not want anything to do with you at all. If you're any sort of a father that gives any sort of shit about your kid, that has to be something that like really fucks with you. But here we have another article. We have Elon Musk's daughter granted name and gender change after saying she doesn't wish to be related to dad. So it says Elon Musk's 18-year-old daughter's request to legally change her name and gender has been granted, according to court records obtained by People. I don't know why is People capitalized like that. On Wednesday, a Los Angeles County Superior Court judge granted the teen's request to legally change her name to Vivian Jenna Wilson. The judge also recognized Vivian's gender as female and ruled for the issuance of a new birth certificate to reflect the changes per the docs. In her original petition, filed on April 18th, shortly after her 18th birthday, Vivian included a short sentence explaining her request for the changes. Gender identity and the fact that I no longer live with or wish to be related to my biological father in any way, shape, or form, she wrote, according to the court documents obtained by People. Although neither the Tesla CEO nor the author has spoken publicly about the ruling, earlier this week, Justine shared a snippet of a family chat she had with one of her 18-year-olds. So the tweet they're referring to is actually this one by Justine Musk, where she says, "I had a weird childhood," my 18-year-old said to me. Here she's referring to Vivian. "I can't believe I'm as normal seeming as I am. I said, I'm very proud of you." This is, I'm assuming, Vivian. She said, "I'm proud of myself." So this is specifically what Musk said. So Musk said, "The reality is that Twitter at this point, has a very far left bias. I would classify myself as a moderate, neither Republican nor Democrat. And in fact, I have voted overwhelmingly for Democrats, historically overwhelmingly. Like, I'm not sure, I might have never voted for a Republican, just to be clear. Now this election, I will. I think there's a need for a public town square where people can debate issues of all kinds, where it feels balanced from a political standpoint and it's not biased one way or the other." Man, I really wish he kept up with that line of thinking. Now, Elon had kind of posed it to where he still loved Vivian, even said things like, "I love my kids a lot," so obviously that would imply Vivian as well, which would show that at least he's that good of a father, to where he doesn't let things like that affect his relationship with his child. Until it didn't. So Elon had actually opened up about Vivian and her initially transitioning back all the way in 2022, where he was vehemently against it and basically blamed outside factors on why she felt this way. So here we say Elon Musk is opening up about his estranged relationship with daughter Vivian. In a new interview with Financial Times, the Tesla CEO, 51, said he believes his daughter, who legally changed her name in June from Musk to Wilson, no longer wants to be associated with him because of the supposed takeover of elite schools and universities by neo-Marxists. Bruh. What are we talking about? It's full-on communism and a central sentiment that if you're rich, you're evil, said Musk, who's a dad of 10. The relationship may have changed, but I have a very good relationship with all the others. Can't win them all. Bro, that shit is crazy, bro. It's like how I talk about like fucking Pokemon collection. Not children, though. It's crazy. So, as I said before, Vivian changed her name to Vivian Jenna Wilson, which ties to her biological mother's maiden name, Justine Wilson, before she married Elon and took his last name. And I think spending some time to go through her and Elon's specific relationship can give us a hint on how he might have treated Vivian, or maybe even his other kids if we want to go that far, but I'll just stick to Vivian for now. Elon and Justine's relationship is more ancient history, as Justine announced that the two were getting a divorce all the way back in September of 2008. She tells like a Spark Notes version of their relationship, and let's just say Elon isn't winning any Best Husband awards either. And as you guys can see, this is directly published by Justine Musk herself, and this is 2 years after they got divorced. "I was a starter wife inside America's messiest divorce. In the late spring of 2008, my wealthy entrepreneurial husband, Elon Musk, the father of my 5 young sons, filed for divorce. 6 weeks later, he texted me to say that he was engaged to a gorgeous British actress in her early 20s who had moved to Los Angeles to be with him. At least she wasn't blonde. I found that refreshing. When I first met Elon, I wasn't blonde either. I was an aspiring writer in my first year at Queen's University in Ontario, Canada, sprung from a small hometown and recovering from a difficult case of first love with the older man I'd left behind. I liked older. I liked poetic and rebellious and tortured. I liked a guy who parked his motorcycle beneath my dorm room window and called my name through the twilight. Romeo in a dark brown leather jacket. A fellow student a year ahead of me. He was a clean-cut, upper-class boy with a South African accent who appeared in front of me one afternoon as I was leaping up the steps to my dorm. He said we'd met at a party I knew I hadn't been to. He invited me out for ice cream. I said yes, but then blew him off with a note on my dorm room door. Several hours later, my head bent over my Spanish text in an overheated room in the student center. I heard a polite cough behind me. Elon was smiling awkwardly, 2 chocolate chip ice cream cones dripping down his hands. He's not a man who takes no for an answer. I was not the only woman he pursued, but even after he transferred to Wharton, he kept sending roses. When he'd returned to Queens to visit friends, I found myself agreeing to have dinner with him. Although I'd been dating a struggling 20-something entrepreneur, I was now engaged to a wealthy one. Elon had sold Zip2, which partnered with newspapers to help them get online, in 1999, the year before, and was worth about $20 million overnight. He bought and renovated a 1,800 square foot condo. We now had a place to our own. He also bought $1 million sports car, a McLaren F1, and a small plane. Our day-to-day routine remained the same, and Elon's wealth seemed abstract and unreal, a string of zeros that existed in some strange space of its own. I made uneasy jokes that he was about to dump me for a supermodel. Instead, he proposed getting down on bended knee on a street corner. 2 months after our wedding, I simply signed the post-nuptial agreement. I trusted my husband. Why else had I married him? And I told myself it didn't matter. We were soulmates. We would never get divorced. A life without Elon was unthinkable, something I'd realized a few months before he proposed. As we napped together on one spring afternoon before a friend's wedding, with my arms slung across his chest, I felt that he was my own private Alexander the Great. Still, there were warning signs. As we danced at our wedding reception, Elon told me, I am the alpha in this relationship. Rose watching a little Andrew Tate on the side, I see. I shrugged it off, just as I would later shrug off signing the post-nuptial agreement, but at the time went on, I learned that he was serious. He had grown up in a male-dominated culture in South Africa, and the will to compete and dominate that made him so successful in business did not magically shut off when he came home. This, and the vast economic imbalance between us, meant that in the months following our wedding, a certain dynamic began to take hold. Elon's judgment overrode mine, and he was constantly remarking on the ways he found me lacking. I am your wife, I told him repeatedly, not your employee. If you're my employee, he said just as often, I would fire you. When we traveled, we drove onto the airfield up to Elon's private jet, where a private flight attendant handed us champagne. I spent an afternoon walking around San Jose with Daryl Hannah, where she caused a commotion at Starbucks when the barista asked her name, and she said blithely, Daryl. It was my dream lifestyle, privileged and surreal, but the whirlwind of glitter couldn't guise a growing void at the core. Elon was obsessed with his work. When he was home, his mind was elsewhere. I longed for deep and heartfelt conversations, for intimacy and empathy. And while I sacrificed a normal family life for his career, Elon started to say that I, quote-unquote, read too much, shrugging off my book deadlines. This felt like a dismissal, and a stark reversal from the days when he was so supportive. When we argued over the house or the kids' sleeping schedule, my faults and flaws came under the microscope. I felt insignificant in his eyes, and I began thinking about what effect our dynamic would have on our 5 young sons. In the spring of 2008, 8 years after our wedding, a car accident served as my wake-up call. The moment of impact seemed suspended in time. The details of the other driver's face, looking at me in horror as she held up a cell phone to my ear, it was like the distance between us didn't exist. There was a crunch of metal as her car plowed into mine, and we skidded to a halt. My first thought wasn't, thank God nobody's hurt. It was, my husband is gonna kill me. And in my mind's eye, I could suddenly see myself, a woman who's gotten very thin and very blonde, stumbling out of a very expensive car with a front left wheel smashed in. I barely recognized myself. I had turned into a trophy wife, and I sucked at it. I wasn't detail-oriented enough to maintain a perfect house or be a perfect hostess. I could no longer hide my boredom when the men talked and the women smiled and listened. I wasn't interested in Botox or makeup or reducing the appearance of my scars of my C-section. And no matter how many highlights I got, Elon pushed me to be blonder. Not long after the accident, I sat on our bed with my knees pulled up to my chest and tears in my eyes. I told Elon in a soft voice that was nonetheless filled with conviction that I needed our life to change. I didn't want to be a sideline player in the multi-million-dollar spectacle of my husband's life. I wanted equality. I wanted partnership. I wanted to love and be loved the way we had before he made all his millions. Elon agreed to enter counseling, but he was running 2 companies and carrying a planet of stress. 1 month and 3 sessions later, he gave me an ultimatum. Either we fix this marriage today, or I will divorce you tomorrow. By which I understood he meant, our status quo works for me, so it should work for you. He filed for divorce the next morning. I felt numb, but strangely relieved. So in the end, she fell completely out of love for the dude, and she only kept up her last name as Musk for the sake of her children. Though from what she said in her excerpt, it seemed to me that she didn't hold really any ill will towards him, at least at the time when she wrote this. I don't regret my marriage. I've worked through some anger, both at Elon for rendering me so disposable, and at myself for buying into a fairy tale when I should have known better. But I'll always respect the brilliant and visionary person that he is. I also can't regret the divorce. Our case was bifurcated, which means that even though the property issues aren't settled, our marriage is legally dead. Elon and I share custody of the children, who are thriving. I feel grounded now and deeply grateful for my life. Now, despite her feeling this way, and honestly, I think this is the mature way to go when it comes to these situations, especially when it involves children, so it's kind of involving more than just you. I still think his treatment of her was really bad and downright cruel from the little that I've read of this. And also keep in mind, this is just from my limited understanding of the relationship, and also this is from her perspective specifically, so take what I say with a grain of salt. While what she said and how she felt about the marriage and how cold he seemingly was towards her, he seemed very cold, cruel, and honestly, that kind of makes sense to me. Elon, as much as we all love to hate him, he's easily one of the most successful men on the planet, and I'm sure this cold hard way that he handles things got him to that point. So yeah, this is how a lot of business people are. They kind of have that calculated sense, which made them successful in the first place, especially for someone like Elon, of why he has so many different wives and he has a bunch of children with those wives, basically. At least that's how I feel. Another thing to keep in mind is that while this was all going on, and she didn't mention anything about any of this stuff happening in front of her children, but I feel like this relationship could have also been a factor that soured Vivian's perception of Elon in the long run, especially with how cruel that he seemed to treat her, right? And I think this is a possible factor into why she ended up changing her name to Justine's maiden name. That's kind of all the background information to kind of go through. Now, before we get into Vivian's response and everything, Elon had actually put out a reply to someone talking about that section of the interview that he did with Jordan Peterson that talks about Vivian and how Elon feels like he lost his child, and he also mentioned some more background context about Vivian. Vivian was born gay and slightly autistic, two attributes that contribute to gender dysphoria. I knew that from when he was about 4 years old, and he would pick out clothes for me to wear, like a jacket, and tell me it was fabulous, as well as his love of musical and theater, but he was not a girl. Now, I just want to say, just because someone is into musicals and theater does not automatically mean that they're gay, okay? So that's not really good evidence to confirm that Vivian was gay. Also, what is slightly autistic? For anybody that kind of knows more about this stuff, because obviously I'm very, very uneducated, so I'm not going to sit there and act like I know anything. Is that true that it's an attribute that contributes to having gender dysphoria? I just feel like I don't think that's true. In a general sense, I would say that his last part I mostly agree with. I believe that just because there's a boy who does certain feminine things or maybe likes some kind of feminine toy or something, that doesn't automatically mean that they're transgender or anything. And I think that goes vice versa for girls that do more masculine things. Like, for example, if there's a girl who's super into cars, that doesn't mean that she's transgender, that just means she likes cars, right? Now, he applies this to Vivian. I'm not applying it to Vivian. I'm just saying it generally. I am no way saying that Vivian is not transgender just because of that, because I mean she literally is, but okay. So after this interview went out on Jordan Peterson's Twitter account, Vivian would actually see this and immediately respond to the interview, and she said, "Last time I checked, I am indeed not dead." So 2 days later, specifically on July 24th, 2024, she responded with a video saying that she was properly going to respond, but it's going to take some time.
Hi, it is Vivian Jenna Wilson. I'm just going to come on here and say that I'm doing well. I'm doing fine, actually. And I am formulating a response and whatnot. It's being worked on. Just hold your goddamn horses for 5 more seconds, okay? I promise it's getting worked on.
And then a day later, on July 25th, she then responds properly to the interview with a series of posts on her Threads account, actually. You know, the app owned by the reptile man.
Kenneth. Mark, give me the Zuck. But you can follow up and tell me what that means, and I'll try my best to do it for you.
So she says, there's a lot of things that I need to debunk, which I will get to, don't worry. But I want to start with what I find the funniest, which is the notorious slightly autistic tweet. This is gonna be a bit, so just bear with me. She says, this is entirely fake. Like, literally none of this ever happened. Ever. I don't even know where he got this from. My best guess is that he went to the Milo Yiannopoulos school of gay stereotypes, just picked some at random and said, good enough, in a last-ditch effort to garner sympathy points, when he's so obviously in the wrong even in his own fucking story. I did not have a love for musical theaters when I was 4, because, you know, I was fucking 4. I didn't know what these things were. My earliest real experience with musicals was when my twin brother had a Hamilton phase in 8th to 9th grade, and overplayed it so much in the car to the point where for a long time I swore off the entire genre. I never picked out jackets for him to wear, and I was most certainly not calling them fabulous, because literally, what the fuck? I didn't use the word fabulous when I was 4, because once again, I would like to reiterate, I was 4. Like, this is so obvious I don't even think it warrants explanation, but apparently people believe this nonsense, so here I am. This entire thing is completely made up, and there's a reason for this. He doesn't know what I was like as a kid because he simply wasn't there. And in the little time that he was, I was relentlessly harassed for my femininity and queerness. Obviously, he can't say that, so I've been reduced to a happy little stereotype. I can't say that, along to use at his discretion. I think that says a lot about how he views queer people and children in general. As for if I'm a woman, sure, Jan, whatever you say. I'm legally recognized as a woman in the state of California, and I don't concern myself with the opinions of those who are below me. Obviously, Elon can't say the name because in a ketamine-fueled haze, he's desperate for attention and validation from an army of degenerate red-pilled incels and pick-me's who are quick to give it to him. Go touch some fucking grass. As you can tell, she wasn't really happy with that comment that he made. So once again, this is just responding to that one tweet, but not the interview in general. But she would actually do so on pretty much the same day in an exclusive interview that she did with the NBC that hints to some very interesting takes from her side and lead to some other contradictions that she claimed Elon had about her. This is going to be a very long read, so I apologize in advance. But pretty much all of it is pretty important, and I want her to tell her side of the story, so I don't want her whole story to be represented here. I'm not trying to cut anything out or anything. My opinion with the first part to Elon's response and then her response to Elon talking about how when she was 4 she was into theater and stuff. We obviously are never going to actually know whether this is true or not. We can't have a time machine. The only people that know is Elon, probably Justine, Vivian, and maybe Vivian's twin. So I'm not gonna sit here and say that one side is 100% right. Now, out of the two, based on what I've read about Elon beforehand, I would probably say Vivian's account is more accurate here, but obviously I can't 100% prove it or anything. So this article says Elon Musk's transgender daughter in first interview says he berated her for being queer as a child. Vivian Jenna Wilson, the transgender daughter of Elon Musk, said Thursday in her interview that he was an absent father who was cruel to her as a child for being queer and feminine. Wilson, 20, in an exclusive interview with NBC News, responded to comments that Musk made Monday about her and her transgender identity. Wilson said that Musk hadn't been tricked and that after initially having hesitated, he knew what he was doing when he agreed to her treatment, which required consent from her parents. Musk's recent statement crossed the line, she said. I think he was under the assumption that I wasn't going to say anything and that I would just let this go unchallenged, which I'm not going to do, because if you're going to lie about me like blatantly to an audience of millions, I'm not just going to let that slide. So then it says Wilson said that for as long as she could remember, Musk hasn't been a supportive father. She said that he was rarely present in her life, leaving her and her siblings to be cared for by their mother or by nannies, even though Musk had joint custody. And she said Musk berated her when he was present. He was cold, she said. He was very quick to anger. He is uncaring and narcissistic. As I said before, this would kind of line up with him being a successful businessman, as you kind of have to have those traits in order to be at the top of the top, which Elon is, so that makes sense to me. Wilson said when she was a child, Musk would harass her for exhibiting feminine traits and pressure her to appear more masculine by pushing her to deepen her voice as early as elementary school. I was in 4th grade. We went on this road trip that I didn't know was just an advertisement for one of the cars. I don't remember which one. And he was constantly yelling at me viciously because my voice was too high. I'm gonna be honest, from what I'm reading here, it really seemed that Elon was paranoid about his kid being feminine in any capacity, which once again is very interesting because this is how he's felt for a very long time. So it's really interesting that if what she's saying is true, that Elon would do something like that. Like, bro, the nigga was in elementary school. Jeez Louise. Let's at least wait until their voice gets naturally deeper before you try to make them like pull a pyrocynical. Like, what are we doing here?
Hillary clit. I'm voting for Hillary Clit. So I've done a face reveal, not sure why. This will only end bad for me.
So then she went into more detail about that court filing that we talked about, where she said she wanted no sort of relation to Elon Musk, like, at all. She told NBC News that at the time, she was surprised by the media attention to the court filing, which she submitted when she was 18. She said in the interview that she stands by what she wrote, though she said she might have tried to be more eloquent had she known the coverage it would get. Wilson said that she hadn't spoken to Musk in about 4 years, and she refused to be defined by him. I would like to emphasize one thing. I'm an adult, I'm 20 years old, I'm not a child. My life should be defined by my own choices, which I agree with. There are some points where you can have a disagreement and impede a little bit. Like if your child is making crazy decisions like doing a hop ton of drugs and stuff, obviously you should probably be there for your kid. You don't have to because they're 18, they can do whatever they want. But I would say that it's good to always kind of monitor your kid's growth throughout, especially at like younger ages, right? But I do agree that eventually they should be able to make their own decisions. Wilson told NBC News that for years she had considered speaking about Musk's behavior as a parent and as a person, but that she can no longer remain silent after his comments on Monday. She said that she never received an explanation for why her father spent so little time with her and her siblings, behavior that she now views as strange. He was there, I want to say maybe 10% of the time. That's generous. He had half custody and he fully was not there. It was just a fact of life at the time. I don't think I realized just how abnormal of an experience it was. And once again, with this point of her claiming that he was only there about 10% of the time, makes sense to me considering that he is in charge of a lot of different companies and probably doesn't have the time to do so. But then it's like, if that's the case, then why do you have so many damn kids, man? Why? Also, this is going to be important for later on, so keep that in mind. Haha. Wilson said that she came out twice in life, once as gay in 8th grade and a second time as transgender when she was 16. She said that she doesn't recall Musk's response on the first time and that she wasn't present when Musk heard from others that she was transgender because by then the pandemic had started and she was living full-time with her mother. She was very supportive. I love her a lot, Wilson said of her mom. The pandemic was a chance to escape Musk's cruelty, she said. When COVID hit, I was like, I'm not going over there. It was basically very lucky timing. Musk told Peterson in an interview that he had been tricked into signing documents authorizing gender-related medical treatment for Wilson, an allegation Wilson said isn't true. This was before I had really any understanding of what was going on and we had COVID going on, he said, adding that he was told she might commit sewer slide. Sorry, I have to censor. I know it's lame, but I have to censor it. Shut up! Wilson said that in 2020, when she was still a minor at 16, she wanted to start treatment for severe gender dysphoria, but needed the consent of both parents under California law. She said that her mother was supportive, but that Musk initially wasn't. She said she texted him about it for a while. I was trying to do this for months, but he said I had to go meet with him in person. At that point, it was very clear that we both had a very distinct disdain for each other. When she eventually went and gave him the medical forms, she said he read them at least twice, once with her and then again on his own before he signed them. He was by no means tricked. He knew the full side effects, she said. She said she took puberty blockers before she switched to hormone replacement therapy. Treatments that she said were life-saving for her and other transgender people. They save lives, let's not get that twisted. They definitely allowed me to thrive. She said that she believed the requirements to obtain such treatments remain onerous, with teenagers pressured to say they're at extreme risk of self-harm before they'll be approved. She said that she judged by Musk and Peterson in the Monday interview for not being at a high enough risk in their eyes. I had basically been put into a point where to a group of people, I have to basically prove whether or not I was suicidal or not to warrant medically transitioning. It's absolutely mind-boggling. So once again, the claims here make sense. I mean, I don't know much when it comes to kind of like how you go about this whole thing with like the doctor and transitioning and stuff, but I'm pretty sure that you do need consent from both parents, and if what she says is true, then yeah, Elon was definitely not tricked. So now for this claim in particular, this has kind of become a he said, she said situation, with Elon saying that he was tricked and then Vivian saying that she didn't trick him at all. And usually with these kinds of situations, I usually like to stay out of it because then you would make the decision based on bias and kind of like who you like more. And I want to look at these situations as objectively as I can. So I'm going to leave this part open to you guys, and we'll be interested what y'all have to say in the comments about it if you want, especially those that are more like educated on this type of stuff. Oh, of who you guys think is lying. And one thing that I kind of wish she elaborated on, it seemed like she did talk to Elon about how she was suicidal, but Elon is saying that as more kind of like he was threatened to do it or else she would commit sewer slide. But from what she was talking about, I feel like from her perspective, what it would more likely be is that she was kind of like educating it and kind of trying to open up to how she felt. I feel like maybe that was his interpretation of what happened. That kind of makes the most sense to me as to this situation. I don't think that she would actually threaten Elon Musk with sewer slide. I know they don't have like a good relationship. They have like a lot of disdain for each other, and maybe it's not out of the realm of possibility. I'll give you that for sure, but I don't know. I just don't feel like that sounds right to me, especially if he didn't say no at first. I don't think Elon said he said no at all. He just said he was tricked. I'm not sure how the conversation went, and none of us are sure how the conversation went. So like I said before, we're not gonna 100% know who's lying and who's telling the truth. It would just be kind of weird to threaten that, because that seems like a really huge last resort, big red button, Drake style, that you would use for that. And I don't know. If he had said no at first and then she came back to him, then said that would make more sense to me, but just kind of off rip to say that, I just don't believe that she would do that. But maybe I'm tripping. Maybe I'm giving her too much leeway. I'm not sure. But yeah, I do wish she kind of elaborated on the whole sewer slide thing. Now, what was actually interesting is on July 26th, Vivian actually showcased a tweet on her Threads account showing support by a user known as Grimes SZ. She says, "I love and am forever endlessly proud of Vivian." Now, who this individual is actually going to be very important for an incident that happened a day after this. So it's important to go over this person and who she is to Elon Musk. So Grimes, similar to Justine, was another wife that Elon had that seemed to have a very toxic on and off relationship. But honestly, we may as well get him on an episode of Truth or Drink, because there's a lot here.
I'm Jay.
Elena.
What are you two doing here today?
We are here today because we are in a situationship.
Yeah.
Elon Musk and Grimes had became parents 3 times during their on-again, off-again relationship. The couple was first linked in May of 2018 when they made their public debut at the Met Gala. In an interview for the cover story for Vanity's Fair April 2022 issue, the Canadian musician called her relationship with the billionaire entrepreneur very fluid. Grimes later clarified in a tweet that the couple had broken up again since the Vanity Fair interview, but she also noted, "He's my best friend and the love of my life." Musk and Grimes have 3 children together. Their first son, why? Was born in May 2020, and they welcomed their daughter, Exa Dark Citadel, via surrogate in December 2021. It's uncertain when their 3rd child's son, Techno Mechanicus, was born. Bro, come on, bro. Oh my God. What is this? What is this name? How is it? How are you supposed? Bro, okay. This kid's name looks like Braille. Like, genuinely, it looks like Braille. So, as the article said, these two started dating on May 7th, 2018, though apparently they may have been seeing each other beforehand, according to some people that alleged this. And then we flash forward to January 8th, 2020, and that was when Grimes actually revealed that they were having their first child together. And then on May of 2020, their child would be officially born. In May 2020, Musk revealed that Grimes had given birth to their first child together, a baby boy named... So then he would end up having a total of 3 children with her, as I said before, with these cyberpunk ass names. I'm not even gonna begin to say them, but he has set them up for failure. They're going to get relentlessly bullied, and it's all going to be his fault. Despite this, and despite them having kids, they did definitely still have rocky moments in their relationship, to the point where they broke up and got together multiple times for different reasons, until they broke up for the final time in early 2022, and then proceeded to move on with seeing other people. The day that her Vanity Fair story hit stands, Grimes tweeted that their relationship status had changed since the interview. "Me and E have broken up again since the writing of this article, haha. But he's my best friend and the love of my life, and my life and art are forever dedicated to the mission now." I think Devin wrote that part of the story really well. Psych, peace out. So as you can tell, it seemed that after their breakup, even though they had broken up multiple times with each other, the two had actually seemed to end their relationship on pretty amicable terms, where they even talked about it and said that they were still good with each other and even decided on doing co-parenting, which for a divorced couple with kids is a really good way to go, and I think the best bet when it comes to these kinds of things. I can understand this gets very complicated and feelings get into it. However, at the end of the day, the thing you kind of have to care the most about and what should be your top priority is the kids in the situation, and to have them have the best outcome, I feel like having both parents in their life is ideal, especially since the kids have memories of their parents and stuff. Once again, I feel like this is probably the most responsible way to go for it. So here you can see kind kind of Elon's response to it. He says, "We are semi-separated but still love each other and see each other frequently and on great terms. It's mostly that my work at SpaceX and Tesla requires me to be primarily in Texas or traveling overseas, and her work is primarily in LA," he added. "She's staying with me now and baby X is in the adjacent room." So why did we end up talking about this relationship and go on this kind of tirade about his relationship with Grimes? Well, because it seems that the two's relationship has drastically changed since then, at least from Elon's end. Because according to Vivian, the nigga is holding the 3 kids hostage from seeing her at all. Yes, Elon Musk is holding the cyberpunk kids hostage, guys. So the biggest thing that actually came from their relationship and where this all kind of stems from what I understand, is from a custody battle that seems to have its own complicated timeline behind it. But just so you guys get the SparkNote versions of what's going on, we're just gonna kind of run through it because there is so much to this, right? So Grimes was the one that actually started this, where she filed a petition in Los Angeles on April 22nd, 2022, where she claimed its purpose was to, quote unquote, determine parental relationship. Keep in mind, this makes sense. She would file this in Los Angeles because Elon did outline a year before that she primarily works in LA, so therefore that would make sense, right? Allegedly, this filing happened after the birth of their 3rd kid, Techno Mechanicus. Dude, I can't take this seriously, bro, with these names, dude. I can't take this seriously. So after all of that happened, he then actually sued her on September 7th, 2023, because according to him, Grimes was not returning the kids to see him in Texas. Then she proceeded to sue him not even a month later, then said that Texas wasn't the right jurisdiction for the custody battle. And a lot of people speculate that the reason why Elon wanted this custody battle to be in Texas and not Los Angeles is because in Texas, the rules of child support is differently. From what I understand, he would basically be paying less in Texas than in Los Angeles. So that's kind of why he's retorting so harshly, from what I understand. Then Elon later said that she was actively trying to avoid the Texas courts and filed a petition that said Grimes was allegedly moving to California to avoid the jurisdiction in Texas, because as I said before, Elon would have to pay less for child support, and even went out his way to ask a Texas judge to have the custody battle restricted. Right. But then Grimes actually retorted back and actually accused Elon of cherry picking certain bits of information from the different nannies. You guys remember the nannies that Vivian actually talked about, where the nannies would be the one to take care of the children because he was never at home, right? Apparently he would talk to these nannies about the kids so he can claim that the kids live primarily in Texas. Allegedly, she claimed that he had them sign NDAs so they couldn't speak out against Musk like at all, but he could still use their testimonies to his benefit due to the cherry picking that he was doing, allegedly. Then Elon actually used a post that Grimes made on her Twitter account to prove that she, and by proxy her kids, actually do live in Austin, Texas. This is when she said, "Austin, I'm moving houses, purging clothes. I've so much gifted from designers that didn't fit or old shows, costumes, etc. Can drop at Goodwill, but is there a place I could drop this off for people who might want it? Either to resell, or there's some really sick stuff that just doesn't fit me." Again, this is the implication that she actually did live in Austin, right? So all this to say, this basically just turned into a giant no-you match. So now, knowing all that information, we can return to the present and kind of get into Vivian's claims, which are pretty serious and very messed up if true. Now, she revealed this on July 27, 2024 on her Thread account yet again, saying the following. "Hello everyone, I'm gonna forego my usual tone for this because this is important. As you may or may not know, Grimes is currently in a custody battle with Elon over their 3 children. What you probably don't know, however, is that Elon has been illegally and continuously keeping her children away from their mother during the most important developmental period in a child's life." So here you can see these kind of texts here. I was kind of confused on who this person actually was the entire time, because this doesn't seem like Grimes, right? So if you guys are like me and are in the same boat, the person who was in this picture, this is the account that belongs to Grimes' mother, Sandy Garasino. While Elon has been irresponsibly partying across the ocean in the very country he's spitting contemptuous poison about, Grimes' children are stuck in a house thousands of miles away without their mother. This is potentially irreversibly damaging to a child's psyche and is, without question, a despicable form of abuse. This is not the first time this has happened, and if nothing changes, likely not the last. I've only been able to catch glimpses of this behind the scenes, and it's been both horrifying and enraging that no one has been able to do anything about it. I cannot stress this enough. This is illegal. He does not have the custody to be able to do this, which would make sense because I don't think they resolved their custody battle yet. So I think she would have primary custody. I'm pretty sure, but I could be wrong. Yet, since Elon has an infinite amount of funds to pull from, he has been able to successfully employ them to take their children away from the mother that they desperately require. This needs to end now. X has been paraded around social media solely for the purpose of boosting his own brand image of responsible father, when that cannot be further from the truth. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, he's both uncaring and absent while robbing their children of a mother. Please do not let this continue. Thank you. And once again, if we actually get into the text, this is once again Grimes' mother kind of pleading to Elon to give her child back. Dear Elon, it was nice seeing you on Father's Day. I hope you got the card that I helped X make. He was very proud of it. I'm writing here is the only way to reach you. As you know, my 93-year-old mother is now at end-of-life palliative care. She yearns to see and hold Claire's children one last time, especially the youngest whom she has not met yet. She was thrilled for the kids' planned visit to celebrate her birthday this weekend, today, but those hopes were crushed when the trip was canceled. I am alarmed to learn that the children cannot come as you are withholding them and their needed passport documents from Claire. It was even more troubling to see you and X on television at the Olympics in Paris yesterday after your DC trip earlier in the week. Where are the other children and with whom? They are scheduled to be with their mother. They were expected here in Canada. I write with a grandmother's plea asking you to honor your agreement, return the children, and provide the documents they need to see their great-grandmother before she passes. Some moments in life last forever and we get no second chances. Family is priceless. Please, Elon, I beg you. This is so painful for my mother and concerning for the kids. Time is of the essence now. This is with all the information that I've kind of provided about this whole thing. Now, the most recent update on all this was actually a post that Vivian made on August 5th, 2024. And this is Vivian going after Elon again in response to saying that his 5 boys were super happy. I believe this was participating in some kind of conversation in like some show or something. Basically, I think Elon's kind of like taking them on this like weird grand tour and stuff. And Vivian like vehemently disagrees with this and combats him for his negligence, basically. Look, I don't know if you genuinely believe this or if you live in your own delusional fantasy land, and frankly, I don't care. It seems like you're trying to rebuild your brand image as the caring paternal father, which I will not let go unchallenged. If I'm going to be honest, this is absolutely pathetic. You just won't stop lying about me in interviews, books, social media, etc. Thank God you're absolutely terrible at it, because otherwise this would be significantly more difficult. Like neo-Marxist communist who was brainwashed at high school to be trans and think being rich is evil is the best you could go with? Really? Like, really? If you're going to lie about me, why would you choose a method so obnoxious in its stupidity? It's beyond stupid. It's desperate. The fact that anyone believed this for even 5 seconds is beyond me. Not to mention you're going out of your way to misgender me, which is both completely transparent and honestly just sad. I understand your new angle is this Western values, Christian family man thing, but it's such a weird choice. You're not a family man. You're a serial adulterer who won't stop fucking lying about your own children. You're not a Christian. As far as I'm aware, you've never stepped foot in a church. You're not some bastion for equality / progress. You called Arabic the language of the enemy when I was 6, have been sued for discrimination multiple times, and are from apartheid South Africa. You're not saving the planet. You do not give a fuck about climate change, and you're lying about multi-planetary civilization as both an excuse and because you want to seem like the CEO from Ready Player One. Like Ready Player One. I would mention the birth rate stuff, but I'm not touching that weird 14 words breeder shit with a 10-foot pole. You single-handedly disillusioned me with how gullible we are as a species because somehow people keep believing you for reasons that continue to evade me. And then she goes on to say, all of this is alleged and whatnot, so I don't get fucking sued, by the way. And I am of the same account. All of this is alleged. This is all alleged. Everything that she says is alleged. I'm not saying that she is 100% right. I'm just saying she has a good point. Once again, this is coming from multiple testimonies that we've kind of gone over throughout this whole thing. Elon just does not seem like a person who really seems like he cares. I think one thing that's really interesting that Justine brought up in her excerpt was when he claimed a long time ago that he was an alpha male. And I think this is the reason why he wants so many children. I'm pretty sure he just wants to like spread his seed like he's Genghis Khan pretty much, right? And at that point, I ask myself, like, once again, if you want to change the world and whatnot, I mean, you can, and you want to be a super high businessman, but like let's be completely honest, what are we talking about? You do not have time to take care of 12 children. And if you have to go to the point where you're getting nannies who 100% take care of the children more than you do, whereas all you provide is like money and stuff, I just don't really understand it. I don't know. I just feel like if you want to continue your business and you want to kind of expand to like the degree where he's at, I think having 12 children just doesn't make any sense. So that's pretty much where we are now. And I actually have a lot of thoughts on this. Now, look, I could go to a topic about Vivian being trans and Elon's opinion of that affecting any potential relationship that they could have had, but I feel like I don't even need to do that here, because I think there's enough here for me to condemn Elon Musk without using like buzzwords, right? From what everything that I've read, and once again, if all this stuff is true, then Elon Musk seems like a complete deadbeat. And personally, I feel like if you truly do love your child and you truly do care about your child, I think things like being trans, regardless of how you feel on that topic specifically, should not strain your relationship with your kid whatsoever. Now, to a certain extent, I can understand Elon's frustration if he feels that strongly about the topic, and if he was only coping about it for maybe like a year and then accepting Vivian for who she is, then like honestly, I would say there's nothing really to criticize there, because it can initially be hard when your child makes a life decision and isn't who you want them to be, right? Like if you want your child to be kind of clean of any tattoos and then in 18 they decide to get a tattoo, then that's something you're just gonna have to accept. If you cope with that for a certain amount of time, but then ultimately learn to accept your child at the end and still love them for who they are as a person, that is completely fine. Because at the end of the day, parents are humans, right? But I think what Elon has to realize is that, at least from what is publicly known and from what I've researched so far, it doesn't seem like the woke mind virus, the thing that lives so incredibly rent-free in this dude's head, was the main factor that ruined his relationship with his kid. Because once again, you can still love your child no matter what life decision they ultimately end up making. Obviously, if it's something that is super dangerous and you want to impede that, that is completely fine. And I think that shows even more love for your kid. But from what I understand, I don't think trans people are going to be dying by the dozen, right? I don't think it has any effect on their life expectancy or anything like that. So if that's the case, then what are we mad about? Why do we keep doing this? Why not just accept your daughter for who she is? Like, why? I just don't understand. She's your daughter, man. It seems like he wants his kids to be just like him, and I just feel like that is incredibly selfish of him to do, and just frankly unacceptable. And if you are going to do that, then, oh, I don't know, maybe you should spend time with your fucking children? Like, what are we talking about? The dude wants to hand his kids off to nannies and other people, but then expect them to be like him in that aspect. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. Why do that? That makes no sense. At the end of the day, and I think that one thing that he's gonna have to come to terms with is that himself, Timothy ruined his relationship with his kid. And that's something that you can't run away from or blame a woke mind virus for doing. It just seems like he doesn't want to actually take any accountability for any sort of strain that he ended up putting on his relationship due to being a bad father. Your kid being trans, once again, should have no effect on the unconditional love that a parent should give their child. And it really does seem like, once again, if everything Vivian is saying is true about her childhood and how kind of Elon treated her, that he was a shit father. And now he wants to instead blame everybody else around him. The woke mind virus, the progressive people. He blames school. He blames neo-communism. He blames all of this stuff except himself. And as a grown man in your 50s to do that, it is very pathetic to see, especially from someone that a lot of people do look up to. Unfortunately, but a lot of people do look up to. I think this comment that I found actually kind of takes the words out of my mouth on what I'm trying to say here. Elon Musk is one of the clearest and most public examples of a man who believes he owns the lives of his children and who does not have unconditional love for his children. He decided to buy Twitter and make him being a bad father all of our problems. That's essentially what it is, right? And now it's pretty much gotten to a point where it just gets worse and worse with each passing tweet that he sends on his Twitter account. Which, by the way, he spams like so much nowadays. It feels like every day he's in some kind of controversy on Twitter. Looking even at the most recent stuff that happened, like him making this tweet to Taylor Swift after she had announced who she was voting for for in the election, with him saying the very strange statement that he was gonna give her children and guard her cats, which honestly at this point is just an average day on Twitter. Also, Vivian chimed in with her 2 cents about the whole thing and what he said to her, where she literally just called him an incel. I swear the word incel at this point has just become a word that's like, it's lost all its meaning, and it's pretty much just the newest way of calling like a guy a loser, basically. That's literally what it is. And now this dude is currently getting investigated by the FBI because his dumbass was talking about Harry Koala and Sleepy Joe getting shot, kind of like implying it in this tweet that's now deleted, but a lot of people have archived and saved that tweet already. And even if he meant that as a joke, that's pretty much a no-go and will immediately have the FBI breaking down your door and you will be investigated.
Tesla and the ex-majority owner, Elon Musk, made a post Sunday night, which he since deleted. It was in response to another user on X who asked why people were trying to assassinate former President Donald Trump. And Musk replied saying that no one is even trying to assassinate Biden or Harris.
I seriously don't understand what's wrong with this dude. And honestly, he's completely spiraling out. And due to this spiraling out, it's going to constantly tank his reputation even more than it already has. I never thought I would see Elon Musk getting investigated by the FBI, but here we are. On one hand, I kind of even have come to kind of feel bad that he let his child transitioning affect his relationship with her this much, and I can feel sympathy from him from that standpoint, right? But at the same time, I think there's a bigger issue of why your child doesn't want to associate with you whatsoever, to the point where they don't even want your last name. It's obviously bigger than the woke mind virus and has more to do with you having a deadbeat father virus. And while I think the relationship with Vivian will never be repaired in any sort of fashion, nor do I think it really should, because once again, Vivian is grown, she can do whatever she wants. If she's happy the way that she is now, kind of restraining all relationship with him, that's completely fine. It's her prerogative to do so. If Elon wants to keep coping like a big baby about it, then he has the full right to do so. But we have to keep this in mind that Elon has 5 kids that should go see their mother and actually have a healthy relationship with him without acting like a man-child. This has gone so public that if the children grow up and see this, they are not going to like you at all. I promise you that. And I would recommend that and hope that Elon does that in the future. What an absolute baby, man. Holy crap. So guys, I entered this video topic kind of thinking that it was just going to be some stupid drama between Elon and Vivian. And now I've come out of this not liking Elon whatsoever. I didn't really like Elon or anything. I wasn't like a super Elon fanboy, but I definitely felt neutral about him. I didn't hate him or I didn't like him. But now I'm definitely down the more this nigga's a fucking loser camp, the more I kind of looked into it. So yeah. Hopefully that'll get me brony points on Twitter. Anyways, that's kind of the end of it. I will catch y'all later, and Despacito. Bye.